This year we sat down. We had to have 2 separate sessions over the course of 2 weeks. First of all, myself, Jim Crooks, our quality control manager, Michelle Brown, our sensory technician, Ollie Rozzi, our cellar manager, and Dustin Krull, our brewing manager, went through the barrels and pulled what we believe to be good representative samples from all the different barrels that we had. That took a lot of work. We went through and tasted kind of exhaustively through all these barrels and tried to figure out what we had, an inventory of sorts. After 5 years of brewing, we have some beers that are still in the program from the original days. We had a lot of 3-year-old beer, and then we had some young beer to work with. We took those samples and we tried to bring the carbonation up to a point where we could actually taste those beers and have an opportunity to figure out what they might taste like in a finished carbonated form. We then invited in the winemakers, and we sit around a table. We have graduated cylinders, we got a lot of glassware, we got a lot of note taking, and myself and the rest of the Firestone staff just sit back and we let the winemakers work their magic. It's incredibly interesting to listen to the vocabulary they use. It's interesting also to see that they have, I don't want to say an opposite approach to, but they have a different way of looking at flavors and how they need to come together, and again, what's going to make something that's pleasing to the consumer, to the end user. But to talk a little bit about the individual people that we had on board, we had 7 winemakers. We had Scott Hawley. He comes to us from Torrin Winery, which is his own winery. He's been in the neighborhood for quite some time, and I'm really a big fan of his wines. Matt Brynildson joined us again this year. Matt Brynildson's winery is a Lenny Coloto winery right on the corner of Vineyard and 46 here in west part of Paso Robles, North County. Sherman Thatcher, and it's really cool to have Sherman on board because Sherman was a brewer for 15 years before he put down the brewing paddle and took up winemaking. And he also has a winery on Vineyard Drive called Thatcher Winery here in Paso Robles. We also had with us Steve Martell, and Steve Martell is one of my closest friends. He's been a part of this program since the very beginning. He's certainly a big beer fan and knows beer well just from hanging out with me, but he also has this amazing wine palate, and his winery is Kaleidos Winery. Also with us was Neil Collins and his assistants from Tablas Creek, Chelsea. And both of them have an amazing knowledge of flavors, a great knowledge of blending wines. I think Tablas Creek has some of the most refined and European-esque type wines that are coming out of the Central Coast. They focus heavily on Rhone varietals, and they just speak a different language. To see those two sitting at the table and kind of picking these beers apart and figuring out what they wanted was amazing. We also had with us Eric Jensen, certainly not last, not least. Eric is been in the county for almost 10 years now, or maybe a little bit even longer than that now. He started the Booker Vineyard, and the Booker Vineyard in that short amount of time has become one of the famous vineyards here in the county, and he runs and operates the Booker Winery. With us also on the second session of our tasting, we had a few non-wine making people. This project has attracted a few others, and it's hard to resist when people want to come in and join us. We had some distinguished folks with us this year. We had Pete Schlossberg of Pete's Wicked Ale fame. We had Tom Griffin, who provides our barrels for us. We had Rick Sellers from Draft Magazine, who was with us last year as well. And not only is a fly on the wall, but actually had some really good input on the blend. And we had a gentleman by the name of Ari Littman, who's one of Pete's friends, who's also kind of an avid beer enthusiast, and actually had some really good input and took some great pictures of the whole thing that you'll probably see up online. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of what the actual blend was this year. And so there were 7 beers involved and a number of different barrel formats. But the lead beer this year, like last year, turned out to once again be Parabola, which is our Russian Imperial Stout. And we used 28% aged product, beer that had been in barrel for over 6 months, and we used 11% fresh product that only had been in barrel for 30 days. And that ended up adding this interesting complexity and a little bit of fresh new life into the product. Bravo made it into the product again. 15% of the Bravo put in was aged in bourbon and 9% in brandy. Then 15% of this blend was Velvet Merkin. And Velvet Merkin is burrowing its way into our program, whether we like it or not. It's an oatmeal stout. It's low in alcohol, but that low alcohol beer tends to just suck up barrel quality very quickly and does a great job of translating that forward. So we really like that beer in this program, and in fact it was hard to get the winemakers to not want to blend a low alcohol beer using Velvet Merkin as the major component. Opal, which is our wheat wine, is in this blend. That beer has been in barrel, or actually was brewed in February of '08, and that beer is 6% of the blend. Rufus, which is our Imperial Amber Ale, was aged in rye barrels, is also 6% of the blend. Double Barrel Ale, the brainchild of Ali Razi, our cellar master, which is basically just our flagship product, Double Barrel Ale on steroids, ended up also being 6% of the blend. And then last but not least, Sean Paxton's Saucerful of Secrets is 4% of the blend. And that was brewed back in October of '07. And it's unbelievable how that beer has stood up in barrel, and actually, I believe, has gotten better over time. I think we end up with a beer that is amazingly complex, and I'm always nervous but very excited to find out what the public thinks about this beer. You know, there's so much love and so much energy that goes into something like this, and you never know if using the winemaker's palate will really strike a chord with beer enthusiasts. I hope in some sense we're educating some part of the wine, some part of the beer world through this project. I'm hoping that, you know, the fact that we bring these winemakers together and we come from a different side of fermentation science to create something, that we have something that we can learn. We have, I think that winemakers tend to focus on subtleties. They focus certainly on balance. They get really into the mouthfeel of what they're producing, and carbonation throws a curveball at a lot of winemakers, but they really like to play with that. That somewhat replaces some of the acidity that they're looking for in their wines. And then beers have things that winemakers never see, and that is hop bitterness versus tannin that comes from grape skin or from the oak barrel. Beer has protein and wine does not, and so it really lends something to the mouthfeel. But the beer we made this year, I think, really has a lot of wine characteristics to it. It has just kind of some silky congruency throughout the entire thing. It has all sorts of subtleties to it, and the thing I'm most excited about is this dark chocolate backbone that runs through this beer with a little cherry center. It was interesting, I was listening to NPR the other day, and there was a chef on talking about vanilla. And of course, vanillin is an oak. Vanillin plays a big part in this project and in these beers. And even if you're not smacked in the face with vanilla, it's there at some level. And I think that what the chef was saying is that there's a little bit of vanillin in mother's milk, and that humans are attracted to it for that very reason. I hope you enjoy our 13th anniversary blend. Cheers.